Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. I'm Sara Jane. This is Thoughtful Nuggets and Pearls on Gift of Healing TV. And as you can see, Jackie is with me. Jackie, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you for inviting me yet again.
Always welcome, always welcome. One of the reasons Jackie wanted to be on this call was because she was the instigator of it. It was the conversation she and I had, and I thought, oh, that's a brilliant topic, and it's labels. And as I put, what do you think of as being labels for people? That is, not jars. But I do think if you say labels, your immediate reaction is packaging and all that sort of type of thing. And of course, we're not, we're talking about people. But I am going to actually start by saying that there is a quote that I have shared, and it's my quote. It's not attributable to anybody else. And that is people, places, circumstances, they just are. It is only the mind that labels it. And when that sort of came to me, it was just like, because we label things as good and bad, don't we? As right and wrong. A nice place, a beautiful place, an ugly place. All of those words are labels. But I know you and our conversation was something totally different. And maybe we ought to go to that first. And it's the labeling of people and conditions that people, whether they find themselves in circumstances or find themselves with a condition. Jackie.
Yeah, and I think part of where I'm a great one. I think a label can be, in certain aspects, the most amazing thing because it's like a set of instructions that give people a bit of a guide. So that doesn't come for when you give somebody a label as dumb, thick, short, fat, blonde, brunette, or whatever else. But where I'm coming from is, and gosh, this will be the first time I've made it public, but back on the 11th of October, I was finally diagnosed at the age of 55 as an adult with ADHD. Well, not the H bit, but ADD. So attention deficit disorder. Now, it's a lifelong thing. And 2 years ago, when a work psychologist that I'd seen had said, I think this is what you've got because I struggled with some things. I'm not stupid, I'm not thick, but there are definitely ways my brain works differently. And one of my children is also on that spectrum. And when I rang them, because I thought they would understand once I'd got this thing, I heard them like sigh at the end of the phone as if to say, oh God, she's got a label, and I was really taken aback because if that was how somebody who had the same condition felt about me saying that I had this, then what was the reaction going to be of other people? And for a few seconds it knocked me for six. So the following day I saw that same child of mine and we were on a trip, just an 11-mile journey, and I brought the subject up again and I saw the shoulders go down as if to say, oh. By the end of that journey, we were laughing and joking. We suddenly realized we had somebody who could understand some of the quirks of the way that our brains work. But also the fact that we do these amazing calculations in our head, solving problems, solving issues. If there's something there, our brains are so incredibly quick. So I don't see that diagnosis, that label, as a negative, but other people do. And I think this is why do we have this definition that a label and labeling somebody is a bad thing? Why can't it be that it's a set of instructions? If we say somebody's Spanish, German, whatever else, we understand that's not their first language. And so therefore we're more cautious with how we interact and we communicate with them. We don't shout as though they're deaf and think they're deaf.
Some do.
Well, yeah, some people do. But we're just more clear with our words and we take the time to explain something if they don't get it. But if somebody says that they're dyslexic or that they've got a condition like ADHD, and for truth's sake, I'm actually in the process of seeing whether they think I've got autism as well. But people seem to think that the people are mentally deficient. They're not. Their brain works in a slightly different way, which I actually think is the most incredible gift. Sorry. YouTube's just telling me somebody's just uploaded a video. That's very good. I apologise for that. I thought I'd got everything turned off. So a label to me is a set of instructions, and it's how you can use those. And so a label can be a positive thing, not just a negative. So Sarah, let you take it over a bit.
So perception, because I spent 10 years working with adults with learning difficulties. The old days, it was called mentally handicapped, because I'm old enough to remember that, from when our parents had a small hotel, and we had adults come and stay at the hotel with their carers who were nuns. And I remember thinking that who got the mental handicap? Us. And I don't like the us or them thing. I really don't. But I actually felt we were the ones with the handicap. But because we were classed as being normal, we had all the worries to do with where our food came, where our clothes from, where the roof over our head came from. They didn't. They came for a lovely holiday and it was all taken care of for them.
And they smiled and laughed, didn't they?
Absolutely. But I also then spent, as an adult, 10 years working as a shared carer with them. And there was one of the very first young ladies that I had, she was like early 30s. And I remember having a conversation, because I knew that obviously by now the terminology had changed. But I shared this story with her about who actually had the mental handicap. But the minute I used that term, mentally handicapped, I saw her whole body. It was sort of just like she hated that term. But when I turned around and I completed the story, she totally relaxed with the fact that I didn't see her with a handicap. I can't remember the condition that she had, but this is where I think labels can almost fall down. You see the positive of a label, and I get that. I so get that. But whatever condition it was she had, the family had been told she won't be able to do this, that, and the other. And so because they'd been told she wouldn't be able to, she was never encouraged to even try. The things I got her to achieve when she was out with me, that the family wouldn't have even attempted because her condition said she wouldn't be able to. So this is where sometimes labels can be really detrimental. Because one of the techniques I've learned is a technique called metamorphic technique that is really brilliant with, I believe it's Down, I'm trying to remember, I'm sure it's Down syndrome. And there was a young family, relatively local to me, but known to the lady who taught me. And they were basically told their little girl would never even sit up without help. Yeah, you've heard me say this before. They would never even sit up without help. The metamorphic technique was utilized because these people knew Elaine. That little girl not only sat up on her own, not only crawled, she learned to walk and run. Because they ignored the label. So I hear what you're saying, I really do, and I totally get it. There are very obviously, very, very definitely some conditions that it's be aware. But there are other things, it's just be aware, but don't prevent somebody from trying what they want to try to do, and don't hold them back.
I get that. And I think there is and even in my own mind, Sarah, I have an absolute contradiction with regard to what I've just said
Yeah.
with my opinion to do with labels. Because to me, labels are an instruction manual, but they are a guide and a guide only.
Yeah.
They are not the only way things can be done. Now, when I got my diagnosis, the doctor said to me, one of the comments was basically along the lines of, just imagine what you could have achieved with your life had you been diagnosed when you were younger. But when I was young, hey, this sort of thing just didn't exist, you know. I was incredibly lucky. I had my school reports from when I was age 5 to about 12. And the information was in there. Jackie would do so much better if she concentrated, if she this, if she did, and all these different bits and pieces, which was all the terminology based around the hyperactivity side and the attention deficit. So it wasn't that it was just me saying this is how I feel and the different bits and pieces. It was actually there in hard cold writing. But I can well imagine that people would have let me get away with stuff when I was growing up if I'd have had that diagnosis. And then I wouldn't have achieved half of what I've achieved. I definitely wouldn't be working on the project I'm working on now because I wouldn't have thought myself capable of doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I now understand where there are the times where I've fallen down on it or why something's taken me longer and everything else. And there's a bit of coming to terms with it. I can't say it's straightforward having that now because, but I also think people, there's a mentality, a way of thinking out there that if somebody has got something that's classed as a deficit, that they're not quite good enough or that they're this, that and the other. And the thing is, that perception is their perception.
Oh, yeah.
And it is when you see the fact that you've had their respect, and if you then say something like this, they lose their respect for who you are as a credible human being in your own right with the achievements you've had. It's suddenly as though you've just slipped down 10 pegs on their scale of, I can't even think of the word they are, it's going off, but it's sad. Now there's one label I've got in life which actually I really don't like. I am only 5 foot tall, okay? And I did not realise until I was probably in my early 20s that I was short.
Because we use the term tall. The label is tall. You're not 5 foot short, you're 5 foot tall.
But the thing is, I didn't see myself. And I remember seeing somebody who was a little bit taller than me and thinking, oh God, they're really short. And somebody said to me, but you're shorter than that. And I was like, I did not know that. Now, I wasn't being disrespectful to that person. I truly wasn't. That's not who it is. And then somebody called me short in a derogatory way. And do you know how it knocked my confidence and my self-esteem for who I was as a person? Because I had never seen myself as short, and I'd never taken my height as to being anything to do with who I was as a credible person. But suddenly, the way it was said to me, it was like I wasn't good enough because I was short. So how is something as simple as the label of short? So I don't know. I just think we maybe need to be a little bit more careful with how labels are used. And
but we don't see that as a label, or maybe maybe we do, because okay, what happened with me? I was Jane as a child.
yeah.
And we won't go into all of that. And there was another little girl called Jane who lived up the road. And she was big Jane and I was little Jane. Now, if you're already insecure, that label of little wouldn't be a compliment. But I would be very happy to be referred to as little Jane now. I know.
But isn't it interesting how you said you wouldn't have seen short as a label? Short to me, I I now have this thing where I feel almost a little bit demeaned when people call me short. Because it was such a shock to me when I realised I was short, and that it meant people looked at me differently because I was short. And I was just like, so a label, I mean, it sounds as though maybe I've gone a bit off track, but
No.
it's a label, something that means nothing to somebody else can be huge to another person. So one of my ex-clients who said to me, I think I might have said it in one of the previous shows about naughty and bad. He could not handle being called naughty, but he could handle being called bad. Because of the repercussions that happened when he was naughty, but he didn't have those repercussions when he was called bad. And so bad was a better word for him, or a kinder word for him, than the word naughty.
For most people, it would be the other way around.
Exactly. And I think for any of us to belittle if somebody says that something matters to them or affects them, and for us, because it doesn't mean anything to us, for us to go, oh, you shouldn't worry about that. And it's not about being this snowflake generation that people are talking about. I think it's about kindness and consideration. And if somebody is happy to tell you about a label they have got themselves and use it, then actually they're giving you the instruction manual for who they are. But if you are choosing to call somebody something, or it's being done in a derogatory way, that's a very different thing. I think there are definitions in it, and there'll be people out there who disagree with what I'm saying because of their life experiences won't go in that way.
Oh, and that's why we do these programs, is to come at things from slightly different, because as I said to you about, but I don't see short as a label, but I obviously saw little as a label.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, same thing. Because I was probably quite a lot shorter than her, but the word that was used was little.
Yeah, but mind you, when you were little, you were always bigger than me. You were so tall, weren't you? When you were growing up, you were like.
I shot up one summer when I was about 12, I think it was 12, or was I 15? Anyway, whatever. While we were at Gardenhurst, I shot up one summer several inches. And then stopped. And I haven't, I say I haven't grown since. I shot up to about 5'2", and I thought that's where I was, until I got measured a few years ago, when my confidence, I'd got my confidence, which I didn't have prior to that. Well, once I'd got my confidence and I was being measured, and they told me I was 5'2.5". And it was just like, hang on, I've grown half an inch. But what had grown was the fact that I was confident in myself. So rather than being like this, I was like this. So and I got a confidence which made a half-inch difference in my height in my 40s.
Which is fantastic. I mean, I mean, when I was younger and everything else, I used to joke with people about being small, short, because I was also incredibly skinny, but that turned out in later life to be celiac disease, and so of course food wasn't being absorbed, so that's why I was skinny. But I used to turn around to people and I used to joke and say, oh, well, it's because when I was little, I was always so good. Everybody used to pat me on the head and tell me how good I was, and it stunted my growth. Or I'd go, well, I was a test driver for Matchbox cars, which are the little tiny little ones. Or I'd say I was a model for Pippa dolls, which were a smaller version of Barbie or something like that. So I would have these comebacks. So I knew I was short, but it was something that was okay. I didn't know I was short in the derogatory way, and the fact that people could judge you on it. And the second that happened, that really changed it, because I don't feel short.
No, and why should we? Because at the end of the day, I'm only 2.5 inches taller than you.
Oh yeah, that's a big 2.5 inches. Even I look up to you. Come on, Sarah.
Well, it depends what shoes either one of us are wearing. Um, but
I'm always flats. I wish I liked heels, but I'm always flats.
yes, so am I. So it's sort of the most
Yeah.
of the time these days. But I think it's just a matter of this is almost a totally other subject of when other people are saying things like that, it's actually their stuff, not yours. But that's a whole other program I'm sure we've shared loads on it in different programs in about, when people say things that actually aren't really very nice, it probably has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Mm.
But if they can find a way to push your buttons that helps to make them feel a bit better, they are going to do it. Um, and it's all of us trying to then step outside of that and think, I don't have to take that on board. But of course, when you are a child, you don't understand that. So this big Jane, little Jane thing, this you being called short in the way you were called short, we were young enough to not well, I was very young enough not to understand that that either they weren't derogatory remarks, or that it was more to do with the other individual than it was to do with you.
Yeah, but I think that's even that is, yes, it is probably the majority of the time that it is to do with the other individual. Sadly, we take too many of us, and
Oh
you
yeah.
see, that sounds like I'm being critical, and I don't mean it in a critical way. Sadly, too often we take it personally, and it's something that stays with us. The person who said whatever it was they said or did whatever they did maybe never even thought about it again,
Yeah.
because they've got too many other things in their life that they're thinking about.
Yeah.
We might think about it a week later, a month later, a year later, 10 years later. I mean, gosh, I'm more like 40 years later, and still it has that effect on, it has that effect on me. And it's, how I mean, I think I've said it before. I just believe truly that the communication skills that we're taught as young people are not really up to scratch for the world that we live in.
Yeah.
I think that it's quite poor. I truly believe that every single school, no matter where in the world, the country, whatever, should have a joint subject of communication and drama, right from when the children are very little. Play these imaginary games, imaginary scenarios and whatever else. Teach people about communication. At the same time, you can be teaching them about history, about geography, about different religions, about whatever else, but combine that subject. And that one of the core things about it is styles of communication, the way that people say things, the effects it has on them, being a bully, not being a bully, being the caring one, whatever else, and actually teach people some skills about communication. In a lot of secondary schools now, they have the debating groups and things like that. That's all well and good. But if people haven't been taught the essence of communication and the impact it can have, or where to let go of impact so that it doesn't have that impact on you. And I think, I think, I can't remember whether it was on one of these, Sarah, or on the other, that label, it might have been a conversation we had, that the label you talked about, mentally handicapped, and it's not a terminology that is used anymore.
No, it's not.
But we still talk about mental health.
Yeah.
Which has connotations.
Yeah.
That are linked to terminology that is now no longer acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay? And mental health is deemed to be, in so many situations, something that is negative. But a broken arm is not.
No.
To have the measles is not. But if you have something that is a mental health issue, for some reason people look at you differently. And I think that there are connotations around some of these words. And if we did a subject between communication and drama, actually maybe we take the sting out of some of them, because sadly some of them have got such strong connotations attached to them and definitions attached to them that that it's hard to overcome them, and hard to overcome people feeling that they've got a stigma associated with it, and other things. And I'm a strong believer that mental health conditions they just are. And how do we have that compassion? But I think I said earlier, had I been diagnosed years ago with the ADHD, would I have been pushed to the extent I was pushed? The same with the fact that I was dyslexic and wasn't diagnosed till I was 32. And in school, the teachers gave me no leeway because they didn't know that I had dyslexia. They gave me no leeway. And you were humiliated. You learnt how to do things so that you wouldn't be humiliated. You searched for anything and everything that was going on so you wouldn't look stupid. Had I been given the excuse or the label of dyslexia when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have tried as hard, because nobody would have really made me.
No, so exactly. And this is where it's finding that happy medium with a label.
Yeah.
Of don't let it stop you. And you've only got to think about sort of athletes like, and I'm going back quite a long time now, Roger Black, who's diabetic. He was one of the 1x400 or whatever, the relay teams that won a gold medal quite a lot of years ago. He was not stopped by diabetes. You've only got to look now. We have the Paralympics. You want to label them?
Yeah.
Label them. But they won't they don't see it as a disability. They don't see it as a label. They see it's a challenge in life.
Yeah.
And so I think, but also there are other labels, and I would like to just very quickly move on to those before we have to draw a close. And when you introduce yourself to somebody, especially if you're a mum or a wife or a husband or a brother or a sister or a whatever, how do you introduce yourself? So when I was married to my 2 exes, I probably introduced myself as their wife first and foremost, and you're probably lucky to get my name, because I labeled myself as belonging to that old word chattel that still does float around, but if you're too young to know what it means, it just means you belong to, I believe. Or how many mothers at school will say, oh, I'm so and so's mother, and they may then use their name second. I think we need to stop labeling ourselves or having the label being the first thing we say. It is about being who we are. So, hi, I'm Sarah, or I'm Sara Jane, or I'm Jackie, or I'm whatever your name is. Hello, I'm me. Then by all means say I'm whoever's mother, wife, husband. The guys can be the same if they've got sort of their wives in powerful situations and positions. It isn't about being anything to do with anybody else. First and foremost, we should learn to stop labeling ourselves.
I think that's a really interesting one. I mean, it's a really difficult one, because I think you're right. Yeah. And I think definitely the generation that we were brought up in, we were brought up to be somebody's wife, but for me, I mean, I've got children and grandchildren. I'm mum, I'm grandma, I'm whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, I think an interesting one, a number of years ago now, because when I got divorced, I think I've mentioned before, my marriage was quite a difficult one. When I got divorced, my ex-husband told me I had to change my name back. And because I had lived in a marriage where I was told what to do the whole time, I refused. But the thing is that I didn't really want to keep that name, but actually I didn't want to feel that I was pushed into it, that he was winning again. I was doing yet again what he was told to. I changed the spelling of my name because I'm Jackie, and so it used to be Jackie, but actually my name, my maiden name was King, and my middle name is Anne. So I was actually Jacqueline Ann King. So I now spell my name Jaki. So what I did is I took the J from Jackie, the A from Anne, and the K and the I from King. So I was still Jackie, but even though I was until actually it was only until earlier this year when my eldest son asked me to change my name back so that actually I was the same name as my children, that I moved back to King. But even though I was still Jackie Bent for a number of years, I was actually Jackie King because of the way I spelt my Jackie, the Jacqueline Ann King. I was still myself. In fact, I was the whole of myself with just my first name. Yeah. I didn't need my surname. And it was quite empowering to be able to be me through it. So Sarah, you do some amazing things for people, and you sound tone with their names. And yeah. Even though mine's pronounced the same way, just the fact mine is spelt differently was actually quite empowering. You're going to see me go off screen for a second. I forgot to plug my laptop in, and it's sort of screaming at me now, going low battery.
Well, we need to bring this to an end. So Jackie, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we'll see you again sort of fairly soon. So I'll let you go so you don't lose you anyway, and I'll finish off. Thank you very much indeed. Been an absolute pleasure, and thanks for sharing.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much indeed for watching us, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that what we have shared has helped you to... Jackie, you can turn the screen off, you know.
I don't know how to. There you are. It's learning how to. That one.
I don't know. Bye.
Bye.
You can't see now if you're still there.
I know. I can't turn it off.
Bless her. I can get rid of her, I think. Oh no, I don't want to reject her. Next week, I am going to be sharing on the subject of learned behaviours. So I will hope you will join me for that. If you've got any comments you wish to share on the Gift of Healing TV website, giftofhealingtv.com, please feel free to. If you want to email me personally, if there's anything from what we've said, please feel free to. giftofhealingtv@gmail.com. Please feel free to. The video will be, well, it depends when you watch, whether you're watching this from the live or on YouTube. In the meantime, have a wonderful time. I hope you'll join us again. Love, peace and light to you all. Namaste.